Hi, my name is Rachael Golliday. I have a background in banking. I joined Savvy Coders as my opportunity to become more secure and challenged than I have in the past. My reasoning for looking into the IT fields are so I am not so stagnant in my career with limited options. During this course, I was able to see how coding is broken down through many different applications and tactics, allowing systems to run properly with collected data and charts. With that being said, I would like to continue learning within the technology field. Also, during this cohort, I was exposed to Agile. So, during the Agile process, we, as in my team, had to break down what we were doing for the upcoming weeks and what we have not completed. This information was input into our Jira boards. Um, as we moved along, our positions did switch, but at the beginning of the cohort, I started off as product owner. As product owner, it was my job to basically oversee or kind of delegate different tasks to my teammates. I was not as hands on with this task, it's more of just making sure everything stays on track. The next job or position would be Scrum Master. As Scrum Master, you are more hands on than product owner, and you are actually inputting the data. So if someone has an issue with something or if someone is not moved on with anything, I would think that you would go to your Scrum Master first, and so that way you can talk about it there and then move on to the product owner. It's different levels of command, and that's how I see it to be played out in the real world. The next job or position would be developer. As developer, you are pretty much doing a mixture of Scrum Master and also just implementing these actual tasks. So we all had the opportunity to implement all of our different tasks because we were all working on the different sections. But as developer, you would mainly be planning out and testing what you have to do. Through all of our agile trainings and daily stand-ups and meetings, our information was input into Jira. In Jira, you are able to move it from in progress to done and start new issues. We also use Jira as our ticketing system, so that way if we needed help from instructors, we were able to reach out to them. My capstone will cover how alcohol culture is changing the My capstone will cover how alcohol culture is changing, especially since April is Alcohol Awareness Month. The consumption of alcohol is starting to take another shift as younger generations are attending more to their health as technology is steadily growing. So are some of the most basic daily practices in society. As unemployment increases, alcohol is decreasing and weekly budgets for the necessity of survival. I will cover how the different narratives of society affects alcohol consumption, or better yet, the lack of. I will be showing you how I use SQL, Excel, Python, and Tableau to create and edit my charts displaying societal comparisons. Along with these applications, I use YouTube and various amounts of websites that were recommended throughout the course to help understand the dynamics and shortcuts of coding. Lastly, a tool that I was able to use would have been the recordings from class when and if I needed to revisit a topic that was not too clear on before reaching out for help from my peers or instructors. The overconsumption of liquor is not a new concept. People of many ages were allowed to drink as compared to the legal age of 21 today. Before Prohibition, alcohol consumption reached their highest levels, hence why rules and regulations had to be set. Health concerns started to arise when necessity survival items like water were not being as insourced as much as alcohol. Occupations were not so mentally intense as they were labor-based. By mid 1900s, an average drinking amount was now at almost 3 gallons per year, compared to 7 gallons per year in the 1800s. This was a nice decrease, but alcohol consumption levels were still high. Since trade levels had decreased and Americans were starting to learn balance, the prohibition was to end in 1933. More studies were taking place, and alcoholism was soon looked at as a disease. Society was starting to investigate reclaiming a healthy body and brain after centuries of binge drinking. No one was sure if these were genetic disorders or learned behaviors. Today, history is repeating itself. Now in advance, new and advanced technology are being introduced as occupations are not so labor based. Healthy options are permanent and steadily evolving, as culture is constantly being redefined toward the benefits of sobriety. Another factor is that alcohol is and has been the cause of depression and death since before legalization and even before functional societies. In my Tableau portfolio, I was able to create my project, Concepts of Alcoholism. I did include a still image and a moving image just so that way I can see the different effects and how they move throughout building onto my project. I am a part of the data analytics program Spring 2023 that is hosted with Savvy Coders. On this slide, I show how countries' alcohol intake based on employment rate is. So these numbers are based upon the age limits of 15, since that's usually when you're usually getting a job and higher. The countries that do not have a number next to it does not mean that they are null. It just means that there was no data to provide during this data set. I also put a scroll down list over here so that way you can single out which country you're looking for. So if we wanted Afghanistan, it will highlight Afghanistan, and then you will also be able to see the different employment rates that are entailed in the data set. When I was in SQL, first I had to edit my data set in Excel. So in Excel, I had way more columns than what is shown here. What I really wanted to entail is how people are shopping for alcohol versus other necessities, the undernourished, and the obesity rates compared to the populations. So milk and alcoholic beverages were similar since they are liquids for the most part. This could include cheese, but for the most part they are liquids. And how it compares to the healthier options, and then also other stimulants that are or could be vitamins or different natural elements to help process. Um, After that, I did not have to do any type of conversions. Everything was in kilograms. So once I was able to open my database by, of course, creating a new database, I was able to import my Excel sheet, and I did import that using CSV. So after that, everything was fine, and these are numbered the most from the least to the most. So um, Pakistan has the least amount of alcoholic beverages that are being shopped for, and then Spain has the highest. That is just a random 10 that I pulled from the chart. I didn't want to do the very first 10 or the very last 10 because I wanted it to be a difference in population totals. When I was in Python, I did create a table. So my data set that I used was the same. Of course, it was the grocery data set. And how I was able to create this table was by importing my different methods that I would use. So that would be matplotlib, which is how I created this chart. I then inserted my data, which will be the different countries, and then also the percentage of alcoholic beverages, and then also milk products. After that, I was able to create categories. So in my categories, I have alcoholic beverages and then milk products, as you see again. Alcoholic beverages are in green, and then milk products are in silver. Um, After creating or getting all of my data input, I was able to create my plots and set my axes. On my other charts that I created, I gave a average yearly income on a different sheet. This one already has everything labeled out and tabbed out so that way you do not have to search for the numbers. And again, this one does not have a zero or no because the information was not there. So I didn't want to add anything and confuse anyone. On my chart that is over here, I have the yearly alcohol consumption. So again, this is between 213 countries. And if you go from left to right and down, it goes to A to Z. So if you are looking for the United States, you would be looking around this area, and you will see that the alcohol consumption is at a 9.70. That is on a scale from 0.2 to 23.5, I believe. On another sheet, I was able to create a chart and list suicide rates. So these are the suicide rates of or self-infliction rates that are consistent with the drinking and intoxication that has been charted and recorded. So this chart does go from A to Z as well. And um, and it lists all of the different percentages also. Another sheet that I just wanted to add was the alcohol awareness facts. So I was able to um, show where I pulled this information from and make sure I upload that. And if you need or know anyone, then these would be helpful tips. It just suggests things that you can do instead of being intoxicated. And then on my next chart, if you wanted to go deeper in, I showed the effects of dopamine. So in my second chart, I showed stimulants. Stimulants are natural feeders to get brain activity moving, and this is how a normal brain looks. It doesn't have any spaces, any gaps, and you see blood flowing and the different effects that and you see the effects of a different or of a healthy brain. So let's say if you were consuming too much alcohol, it would start to cause gaps or air spaces or air ducts within the brain. This was just an add-in slide if you wanted to learn more about how dopamine affects the dopamine effects, stimulant effects, or serotonin effects, and caffeine effects also. And lastly, but not least, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to Savvy Coders for giving me this opportunity. And I am very grateful and looking forward to keeping in contact and also using my skills upcoming with different projects and also hopefully with different opportunities. Thank you.